But we were on a break. Right. If you are in my generation, you know exactly where that's from. Friends. And I have a story for you today that deals with exactly that. What do you do if you're with somebody for a while and then you break up and then hook up with somebody else and then get back with your original partner? What do? Is there something wrong with that? And what would you do in that situation? Hi, I'm Jason, and welcome to the only YouTube channel that gives you advice, not to the original poster, but to everyone watching my channel. Now, let's learn from others. I was in a relationship for almost 2 years during college, 21 months to be exact, and had made future plans on doing so many things together and spoke about marriage and children. I got dumped last summer, the same day I found out my grandfather passed away, in absolute shock on both ends, because he wanted to focus on himself, and distance was going to be difficult. He decided to go to a different continent for an internship, and we wouldn't see each other for over 6 months. I would graduate a year earlier than he would, but another reason for him taking this internship was because he messed up his semester by taking too many classes and getting high every day. I still loved him and was willing to forgive him if he asked to be together again when he came back. A month later, he messages me and tells me that another reason he broke up with me was because he caught feelings for some girl while we were together, that he met once at some street fair. I was completely floored by this because this girl and him were just acquaintances and they never spoke to each other, and then, all of a sudden, he decides to dump me because he thinks she could be the one. In the coming few weeks, he would tell me about how much he liked this girl and how he wanted to take her places, and he hoped she liked him back too. And he had a feeling that she did. Fast forward to 3 months later, where I'm in my last year of classes, and I hooked up with a guy that we both knew. This guy was someone he had issues with and was insecure over, as I had liked this guy before. Full disclosure, I lost all feelings for him completely after a few months, and did not have any romantic inclinations once my ex and I got together. But the ex found out about it before I had the chance to speak to him about it, and went ballistic, saying that I should have had the courtesy to tell him about it, and how could I have bumped this guy? Of course, looking back, it has been a year since this incident. I do agree that it was a mistake, and I wish I never did it. But we were both single. I wish I did say I did mess out with him and give him a heads up, but I didn't, and I accept that. The ex removed me from all social media accounts, and we don't speak from September to February. Ex then comes back from his internship, and I hear he hasn't pursued the girl that he dumped me for, and on my birthday, someone brings his name up, and I start a full-on crying because I realize I still miss him and love him. He hears and decides to meet me and start an on and off relationship. Feelings for that girl somewhat diminished, but still, he has a small thing. Then he decides that there's another girl who he has been talking to and is a friend of his who he hasn't met in almost 10 years, that he thinks might also be someone he could like. Needless to say, he and I would be fighting every other week because I still loved him, and I was willing to give him a chance after all that happened. And I thought, he loved me too. But he would still bring up how I hooked up with the other guy and guilted me into that being the state we were in. We decided to end our relationship in the summer. This past summer, we were driving to go somewhere, and this was my first time driving on the highway for a long period, and I almost successfully made it to my destination. We get into a small fender bender, but thankfully all parties were okay. A month after that accident, which my family doesn't know happened, and I have not driven since because every time I think I'm ready to start, I start feeling very panicky. He messages me saying I should have been more careful while driving, even though the cop told both him and me that it was the other person's fault and I had done the right thing by braking on time at the light. Still, I carried a lot of guilt from that accident, and to hear someone say that maybe I would have realized how much someone was worth after they died got to me. and he decides to remove me from all social media accounts again and cuts off contact. I started drinking heavily every weekend and wasn't sure how to handle all the guilt that came from the accident, as he's the last person I would want to get hurt in an accident, and I lost even more confidence in my driving. And how we had ended. I considered therapy, and still am, to cope over all this. Fast forward to a few weeks ago when I get a message from him where he asks how I'm doing and making small talk. He apologized for all the comments he made about the accident and said that it was not my fault and he shouldn't have handled it the way he did, as this could be our chance to strengthen our bond, but he chose otherwise. He joined therapy for some of his issues too, which I was happy about because he has someone to speak to and to help him. We spoke here and there some more, him messaging almost always except one time where I wished him a happy holiday. He would say things like how he missed me, and it felt so different for him to be in this last year of school while I wasn't there. I miss him too, but I wasn't sure what I could do because we weren't living in the same area anymore, and he was applying for jobs all over the country. He also just fought with me so much, and I just didn't think it made sense to feed into something that could end up hurting us both again. 2 days ago, he messages me and says some of the most nasty things I've heard in my life. Said I was a hoe and I was a slut for screwing some guy that got in the way of our relationship. Even after I hooked up with said person after we broke up and wished I would die. He said I was a terrible person and had no idea how relationships worked, and he was the one guy who was everything for me, and I couldn't find anyone better. I didn't respond to him because I was on vacation, but he messaged me again the next day asking why I hadn't responded and how I wasn't brave enough to say anything or face my issues. Not true, as I am a pretty outspoken person and did not want to say something, or else he would have twisted my words and continued arguing some more. I'm trying to be more mature, but he doesn't seem to like that. I have always told him that I regretted what I did and have apologized numerous times, and I'm not sure what I can say at this point. I forgave him for how he broke up with me while I was grieving over a death and when he liked the girl or girls, which took a long time. This time, however, I just said that I said whatever that needed to be said before and wished him well for his future. He blocked my number, so I don't think he got my message, and has blocked me on Facebook as well. His brother removed me from social media too. Is all of this my fault? I have numerous friends who have told me he's acting immature over all that he has done to me, but I still feel guilty that I didn't say anything when I hooked up with the guy. And I already know that I should have and wished I never did it in the first place. Wow, okay. There's a lot to cover here, but let me just go right to the end. No, you didn't do anything wrong. I mean, you could have handled some things better, but you didn't do anything wrong. Well, actually, no. I will say the only thing you actually did wrong was not block him back after he blocked you. I mean, I'm not a fan of blocking. Everyone knows on this channel, I'm not a big fan of going up and blocking people right away. I think that's, kind of lame, but that's just my opinion. But in this case, I would say, he's abusive. You're not really getting much out of the situation. So it's time to, cut him out and move on. He's not a guy that is going to make your life better. I know we can always be in relationships and have feelings. Even when someone's not treating us well, we can have feelings for them, and it can make us or cloud our judgment as to what we should do properly, or make it harder even for us to walk away from a situation when we know we should, as this woman obviously should. Going back and forth after the relationship is over, come on, no good, no bueno. You're always retreading the same things over and over again, and then it's not really making it better. And the fact that he only blocks you and then unblocks you only to lash out at you, you walking away is doing the best thing for you and your future. This was probably not a relationship that would have ever matured into the things that you wanted it to mature into. to a nice, fulfilling relationship with a supportive, partner where you both could be, working towards a common goal. It's always very hard, especially when you're in school, to try to really figure that out if you haven't been in a lot of relationships. But this is obviously not a relationship you want to keep pursuing and going for. So, some of the red flags to look for. How do they treat you when they're upset? That's always the first thing you should be, maybe not the first, but always near the top of the list. When they're not at their best, how do they treat you? It's a very simple litmus test. When they're upset, when they're angry, and the day's not going well for them, how do they treat you? Do they still treat you with respect? Are they still nice to you? Do they, lash out at you, call you names, call you a hoe, a slut, things like that? That's a giant red flag. Those type of indications are things that never tend to get better with a relationship. They kind of backslide and get worse and worse and worse. So, you find yourself in a situation like that, pull the ripcord and jump out, because there are much better people that you can find yourself in a relationship with if you put in the work. Now, let's talk about hooking up with that guy. Now, that was not the best choice, but like I said, you didn't do anything wrong. Y'all were actually broken up. You decided to pursue something that you wanted to, that you were curious about. Like, we all have those people who orbit our life where you're like, that person's cute. Oh, if I was in a relationship, maybe that might work. Or if they weren't in a relationship, maybe that might work. That always works for a short period of time. But knowing the complicated history and the leftover feelings you have for your original boyfriend, probably wasn't a good idea to go and hook up with someone that, caused problems in a relationship, especially if you were hoping that you might work something out in the future. But that's not really something you really want to start closing off your life to, because what if it doesn't work out? What if he doesn't come your way? And he's the one that chose to leave. So you had a lot of things on the table indicating that he wasn't going to be as serious a partner as you wanted, and you weren't going to have the future you were going to have, so you left. Good things, try not to complicate it with getting involved with people who, you're only casually interested in if you don't really see a future there, especially if you're not that type of person. So, there's a lot of things we can learn from here. I hope we all are in and out of relationships at some point in our life. We all make mistakes, on both sides. But if this ever happens to you, remember, you've already learned from others. Good night.